Remember when the showrunners claimed to be massive fans of Tolkien? Remember when they also claimed to be respecting Tolkien's work when creating this series? Pepperidge Farm remembers. Hello, this is Mario Jade and I'm back with another video. And for those who have not watched my spoiler breakdown for episode 5 of Rings of Power and don't exactly want to sit through the other lore-breaking bullshits within this series before getting to this massive, incredibly fucking massive retcon, here it is. Here it is. Massive mithril retcon. One of the stupidest things I've ever fucking seen in this series so far. They've been breaking lore left, right, and center pretty much the entire time, and we're not even done with season 1, and we get to episode 5, and they decide that they are going to completely turn on its head the actual lore surrounding mithril Tolkien created. Why? For shits and giggles. So whenever McKay and Payne, the showrunners, claim to be massive fans of Tolkien, don't fucking believe them, because these scripts would have had to gone through them as well in order to be greenlit, because they are listed as executive producers for this series. And if they claim to be as massive fans as they are, they would have looked at the script, looked at what they were changing to mithril, the ore the dwarves dug for, and said, wait a fucking minute, this is not the actual use for mithril, this is not the importance of mithril, why are you doing this? You're basically completely altering the lore Tolkien established, the world building around everything Tolkien established, and doing this retcons other shit too. So if you still want to believe that they're massive fans, well, that's on you. If you still want to watch a series believing they are at all respecting Tolkien's work, that's on you, alright, at this point. Because right here, back to their interview they gave several months prior, where they said that they were going to tell the story Tolkien never wrote, here it fucking is. Here it is. But at any rate, let's just dive right into this so we can get a gauge of the massive lore breaking now this series is doing. And spoilers ahead for those who have not watched the episode. And if you still want to watch the episode, don't watch this video just quite yet. Watch it, then come back to this, or whatever. Or if you don't mind spoilers, here it is. Here it is. Rings of Power put the myth into mithril with a ridiculous twist that actually isn't as crazy as it seems. Oh, no, it is not as crazy as it seems. It's fucking crazier. And it's fucking bullshit. It retcons other shit along with it. So don't just sit there and go, oh, it's a ridiculous twist, but it's not as crazy as it seems. Screen Rant, you almost had me in your corner. Nearly had me in your corner at one point, but now you're back to ass-kissing the showrunners and Amazon Studios. So here it is. Rings of Power Episode 2 revealed Moria's father-son Durin duo, which is also lore-breaking, by the way. There would never be two Durins at the same time. One of them would be called Durin, but that's it. Only one would be called Durin at once, pretty much. Made an illuminating discovery deep beneath their mountain. Commonly known as mithril, this rare substance is the stuff Frodo's shirt is woven in The Lord of the Rings. A metal so light and tough it was worth more than the dwarves than gold. The timeline's perhaps a little off. No, it's incredibly fucking off, because you have events happening before the Rings of Power is actually created, because the Rings of Power aren't created until the 1500 to 1590 of the Second Age. But then you also have events regarding what's happening in Numenor that happened nearly 2,000 years later. So it's not just a little off, Screen Rant. It's completely fucking off. The timeline is so askew that there's no way that you could tell anyone who's watching this series who have not read the books to go back and read it, because they will be just as fucking confused. That's how off this timeline is. But Moria discovering mithril in Middle-earth Second Age broadly fits J.R.R. Tolkien's Legendarium. I love how that masterpiece of overstatement broadly fits. Rings of Power Episode 4 then saw Durin IV tell Elrond that mithril represented a brighter future, but the extraction process involved great danger. King Durin III was also terrified the elves would learn of Moria's new mineral and covet mithril for themselves, which means Elrond gets forced to sign Middle-earth's equivalent of an NDA. Though audiences knew elves would discover mithril eventually, but this lone detail aside, the Rings of Power's mithril backstory seemed over. About that, Rings of Power Episode 5 reveals a huge secret behind mithril that completely upends Middle-earth mythology and makes the ore way more important than anyone would have guessed. Even without this fucking upend, it was still incredibly fucking important to the lore. It was still incredibly fucking important. Maybe not exactly as important as the Cimmerals and the Rings of Power per se, but just as fucking important to the world building Tolkien established. Rings of Power writes a totally new origin for mithril, so there it fucking is. Respecting source material, fans of Tolkien, completely upending everything Tolkien wrote about mithril. According to High King Gil-galad, they make him a conniving manipulator, pretty much, a bastard in this recent episode. As well as Celebrimbor, they completely assassinate both those characters. The elves have an old legend many consider little more than a fairy story called the Song of the Roots of Hithgalir. Once upon a time, that date isn't given, but considering blah 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 context of late First Age, Finrod's death, an unnamed elf warrior dueled one of Morgoth's Belrogs on the Misty Mountains. This elf had discovered one of the 3 precious Cimmerals hidden in a tree atop the rocky crags and sought to reclaim it, whereas the Belrog wanted to extinguish the stone instead. The Cimmerals were jewels made by Feanor, but stolen by Morgoth and taken to Middle-earth. Feanor swore himself and his descendants to a blood oath in the name of reclaiming them, which means the unnamed elf in this legend is likely a son of Feanor and fulfilling his familial duty. According to the elf's legend, this elf poured his light, more on that later, into the tree to protect it. The Belrog countered by barraging the tree with its darkness. Along came a lightning bolt to strike the tree and combine the Cimmeral's light with the nearby forces of good and evil, sending a wave through the mountain. This process created a special ore within Moria that shone with the glow of a Cimmeral, possessed the strength and fortitude of a Belrog, but had the weightlessness and grace of the elf. The dwarves of Khazad-dûm would later discover this mineral, and mithril was born. Again, completely breaking the lore. Completely fucking breaking it. Now, I know I've stated in the past that these showrunners, Amazon Studios, do not have the rights to actual Second Age histories whatsoever. But changing something like this, when all they would have to do is just have it so that it's actually connected to what Tolkien actually established, changing it so much to this point, completely altering its purpose, completely altering the reasons why the elves wanted it, completely altering why the dwarves dug for it. Why? Fucking why? I know it's a rhetorical question at this fucking point, but why? Why would they do this? Pretty much. And then speak out the other side of their mouth and claim they're fans. They're narcissists, pure and fucking simple. These showrunners are fucking narcissists. Right? How it rewrites canon. Rings of Power's new mithril mythology is a fairly egregious rewrite of several aspects from J.R.R. Tolkien's work, starting with how a Cimmeral got itself stuck in a tree. The Cimmeral's movements are well documented after their arrival in Middle-earth. 2 were kept by Morgoth, then promptly lost forever upon his defeat. 1 under the sea, the other deep beneath the earth. The 3rd Cimmeral was taken from Morgoth and passed from one owner to another, never further east than modern-day Lindon, before ending up on Erendiel's head, and the Rings of Power has already confirmed the tale of Elrond's dad is TV canon. When and how a Cimmeral wound up in a treetop of the Misty Mountains is, therefore, a mystery. One of those mystery boxes, folks, that this series loves to fucking put ahead, but again, I shouldn't be surprised because bad reboot is associated with this stupid series via the showrunners. The elf warrior in Gil-galad's myth could be a son of Feanor, and the Belrogs were Maya corrupted by Morgoth, so the battle itself checks out fine. Alas, the elf pumping his magic light into the tree has a less obvious connection to Tolkien lore. The Calakendi were elves blessed by seeing the 2 trees of Valinor, and they became more mystical and powerful than kin who never witnessed those glowing trunks. Rings of Power interprets that Calakendi more literally. Middle-earth's live-action elves are spoken of like batteries filled with light. They can dispense this gift onto others, but eventually need recharging in Valinor. Pretty much making them almost like the fucking Energizer bunnies. But by far, Rings of Power, biggest change is the reframing of mithril as a creation born from the 3 forces of Valinor, light, darkness, and a Cimmeral. In Tolkien lore, mithril was a naturally occurring, just really useful stuff the dwarves pulled out of the rocks, yes. It was just an ore, highly coveted ore, Highly coveted ore, but just naturally occurring. That's it. They do not need to be retconned in any fucking way as they are now. But this right here not only bastardizes what Tolkien established with mithril, but also completely upends the Second Age histories. Right? Rings of Power mithril retcon is such a grandiose explanation for what's fundamentally just a chunk of ore. Good ore, but ore nonetheless. Mithril plays the smallest role in Middle-earth's history. The doors of Durin, the bag and shirt, how the Balrog was awoken, and that's pretty much it. Elves coveted it. Elves coveted it for its beauty. They wanted to use it in, say, jewelry. Guess what piece of jewelry it was fucking used in? Galadriel's Ring of Power. So it's not just a smallish role. It literally was within Galadriel's fucking Ring of Power, Nenya. And then, on top of it, also because it was worth so much. It was worth so much. So it's not just a smallish role. They're literally just picking out what was brought up, seen and brought up in the Lord of the Rings trilogy. This fucking writer has no idea the Second Age histories. None. They're just going off the movies created by Peter Jackson, the adaptations of Lord of the Rings. That's fucking it. Because that's not pretty much it, according to this author. That's not pretty much it. It was very fucking important. Like I said, not quite as important as, say, the Cimmerals themselves or Rings of Power, but just as fucking important to the histories of Middle-earth. And yet, in the name of creating a new origin for the substance, Rings of Power reworks both Cimmeral history and the Elves' biology, as well as spinning a whole new First Age legend. Yes, they are completely upending not just the origin for this ore, but all this. This retcon branches out into completely altering other established world building created by Tolkien. So anyone watching this series at all still thinking these showrunners are fans of Tolkien, then I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. I got land to sell you in Florida. If you're that gullible at this point, I got something to sell you. It's like going to the trouble of purchasing an entire house just because you quite like the shed in the yard, but the Rings of Power's illuminating mithril lore actually serves a deeper purpose. Gil-galad and Celebrimbor drop a massive secret on Elrond. The elves are gradually fading away. As the Rings of Power explains, living in Middle-earth away from Valinor's light is bad for the elves' health. And when the glow inside them fades, making them like the Energizer fucking bunny, the Noldor themselves will apparently diminish. There are two possible solutions to this pointy-eared predicament. Return to Valinor and bathe in its light all over again, but abandon Middle-earth to Sauron, or find a source of that light somewhere in Middle-earth. Mithril is that alternative source, and if Gil-galad can convince the dwarves to part with enough of this stuff, they can stay in Middle-earth for another 3,000 years or so. Well, golf clap. Completely changed the reason why the elves stay. Completely changed the reason why they decide to leave. Golf clap. Fucking showrunners. The elves fading away is sort of inspired by Tolkien. There it fucking is again, sort of inspired. It should be inspired. It should be adapting Tolkien's work, but this is in no way adapting anything that Tolkien wrote or established. By the time Lord of the Rings begins, elves have started feeling themselves diminish and are migrating across the sea to Valinor, where the effects will stop. But their fading wasn't caused by a lack of light juice or anything quite so tangible. Tolkien's idea was that as the Second Age and Third Ages progressed, the era of the elves would draw to an end and the time of men would begin. Because this is the mythology for Europe, mythology for Britain. This is kind of like an explanation as to why we don't see elves anymore, why we don't see halflings anymore, dwarves and so forth. That's it, pretty much. The fading was a natural transition from one race to another, but going west would ease the elves' wariness. Tolkien never suggests that sticking 2 lumps of mithril into an elf's ears would allow them to remain in Middle-earth. Oh, I love how every mystery the Rings of Power mithril retcon explains. Rings of Power's mithrilology, they're so fucking clever there, may be wild and may deviate massively from established continuity, but Gil-galad's story of the elf and the Balrog makes more sense than you might think at first glance. Mithril has always been found exclusively in Moria, and the Rings of Power's freak origin will explain why the mineral is limited to a single location in Middle-earth. Plenty of fucking ore only naturally occur in certain locations here on Earth, in reality. So why is it so beyond your comprehension that could only possibly occur in one location or limited locations in Middle-earth? How is that beyond the stretch of your fucking imagination? But then again, this author is writing for Screen Rant, so I just answered my own question right there. We can perhaps also assume that the Balrog who struck the tree with darkness is Durin's Bane, and might have descended into Moria wanting to vanquish the Cimmeral lights trapped within mithril. No, he was there. The dwarves fucking woke him up. Remember Gandalf's, Saruman said they dug too greedily and too deep. They fucking woke the Balrog up. He didn't descend to try to vanquish the Cimmeral light. He just fucking woken up and decided he was going to wreak havoc in Moria, in Khazad-dûm. That's it. Tolkien wrote that Gil-galad's elves had heard rumors of Mithril's discovery and established Eregion with the intention of trading with the nearby dwarves of Moria. Though these events are reinterpreted for Rings of Power, the elves' myth about Cimmeral being struck by lightning on top of the Misty Mountains might account for how those rumors started. No. Again, it's beyond your comprehension, beyond any shred of belief for you that it's believable that those rumors could have made it to other locations within Middle-earth, that this ore was found. And once the elves discovered its beauty and so forth, that's what they wanted. They used it in jewelry, to ornate doors, and so forth. So why is it beyond any amount of belief for this author that the elves could have just heard these rumors? Not because of any thing like this, that mithril could all be connected to the elves or anything like that. Nothing. Just that it's beautiful, it's shiny, it's strong, and so forth. Finally, audiences can also rest easy knowing the reason Durin ultimately gave elves access to mithril after initially going to great lengths to keep the discovery a secret. The elves' very existence depended on mithril, so either the dwarves weren't callous enough to let an entire race die, or more likely, Durin and his people realized they could quite literally charge the elves anything for their mithril and get away with it. It's essentially what happened. Which is essentially what fucking happened. Alright? Dwarves mined the ore. Elves heard about the ore. Elves wanted the ore. Dwarves, this is when, during, certain points in the Second Age histories and so forth, when elves and dwarves at least were on friendly-ish terms, traded with the elves. Sold the mithril to the elves. That's fucking it. Trade and commerce. Pretty much. Anyway, that is the article. That is the massive retcon, which not only changes the actual history established for mithril itself, but also alters First and Second Age histories and legends and so forth. They are completely altering the history Tolkien created, because Tolkien wrote the Silmarillion first. He wrote it first. He wanted it published at the same time as Lord of the Rings were, but the publishers wanted a similar story to that of The Hobbit, so they chose not to publish the Silmarillion. They chose to publish Lord of the Rings, and unfortunately the Silmarillion wasn't published until after Tolkien's death, but he had written the fucking histories at the same fucking time and before the Lord of the Rings. So all this, even into the Lord of the Rings, the Third Age, was fucking established. But Amazon Studios does not have the rights to any Second Age histories created by Tolkien, written by Tolkien. They only have access to the timelines, and even they are fucking those up. And now here's this massive retcon. Alright? So again, anyone who believes that these showrunners are fans of Tolkien, I got a bridge to sell you in Brooklyn. I got some land to sell you in Florida, pretty much. And for the excuse going around now for people watching this series, and I'm not calling out specific people, but I've seen this excuse floating around in social media about how they are watching it as an alternate universe, right? Which I believe, in my opinion, is one of the most fucking stupid reasons out there. Because if you're signing off on this, if you're okaying this, and using the excuse of I'm watching it like an alternate universe or a different timeline, then don't you fucking bitch about any other entertainment studio or any other entity bastardizing other IPs. Don't you fucking complain about Lucasfilm and what they're doing to Star Wars. Don't you fucking complain about what Paramount is doing with Halo. Don't you fucking complain about any other IP. especially ones that you love, because if you can excuse this, then you can excuse that shit. That's just my opinion. That's just my opinion. My little rant right there. If you can excuse this by saying you're watching it like an alternate universe, then don't you fucking complain at all about anything Lucasfilm, Paramount, or any other entity is doing to another IP. That's just my rant right there. Pretty much based on this massive retcon. But what are your thoughts down in the comments below? Do you agree with this retcon? Do you disagree with this retcon? Again, watching the series, like it, not like it, on the fence. What are your thoughts about this series? And so forth. I'll be watching episode 6 this week. Nearly done with season 1. Thank God I'll have at least a break before season 2 starts, because as far as I know, they've greenlit that shit already. But there it is. So again, what are your thoughts down in the comments below? Let me know all that. I will be live later tonight on Twitch about 7:30 p.m. Eastern or so come hang out with me then. Normally I would be doing the top 10 movie discussion tomorrow. It's top 10 movies set in schools, the school environment, but I'm going to have to move that to Thursday because I have family that I'll be hanging out with tomorrow evening, so I won't likely be able to stream at all tomorrow evening, so I'm going to try to put a video out again tomorrow and then kind of take the break on Thursday and stream later on the evening or so forth on my YouTube channel for the top 10 movie discussion, and then back to the normal streaming schedule Friday and Saturday. So come hang out, let's have fun, let's shit on the series if you don't like it as I do, but all that fun stuff. Like, share, subscribe. This is Mara Jade. Catch you on the dark side, and I wish the Balrog would just fucking end this series.